In 334 BC, a young king, Alexander of Macedonia, just 21 years of age, gazed upon the horizon of history with ambitious eyes. His goal was monumental: to conquer the Persian Empire, the greatest power of the age. Alexander stood at the head of a coalition of Greek forces, a diverse yet formidable assembly of warriors. The heart of his army was the Macedonian phalanx, men trained to fight in unison, wielding the mighty 18-foot sarissa pike with deadly precision. Flanking these infantry were the elite horsemen of his companion cavalry, celebrated for their swiftness and fierce loyalty to their king. Together, at the Battle of the River Granicus, their unity and might were tested for the first time against the Persian army. It was a decisive victory, not just in terms of military success, but as a declaration of Alexander's intent to challenge the established order of the ancient world. Now, as Alexander approached Sardis, capital of the Persian province of Lydia, its commander surrendered without a fight. The commander of Sardis, recognizing the futility of resistance and perhaps swayed by Alexander's growing reputation as a formidable leader, didn't even try to put up a fight. This easy victory was a significant psychological win for Alexander, demonstrating his influence and the respect he commanded. But before Alexander could advance further into Persian territory, he had to address a critical threat: the Persian naval power. The Persian fleet, with major bases around the eastern Mediterranean, posed a significant risk to his supply lines back to Greece. Alexander, known for his strategic foresight, decided against direct maritime confrontation. Instead, he targeted the Greek coastal cities of Miletus and Halicarnassus, key Persian naval bases. These cities put up determined resistance, but ultimately fell to Alexander's relentless campaign by winter. The following spring of 333 BC, Alexander continued his advance into Lycia and Phrygia. Alexander's path led him to Gordium, home of the famed Gordian knot. A prophecy said that whoever could unpick it would rule all of Asia. Alexander simply took his sword and sliced it in half, a bold and symbolic gesture that signified his refusal to be constrained by traditional expectations or superstition. Meanwhile, in the Aegean Sea, Memnon of Rhodes, a renowned Greek general now in Persian service, led a naval offensive, capturing key islands like Chios and Lesbos. His success posed a considerable threat to Alexander's campaign. However, Memnon's sudden death from illness brought an unexpected halt to the Persian naval offensive, once again tilting the balance in Alexander's favor. 18 months had passed since Alexander's army crossed the Hellespont and invaded the Persian Empire. Alexander led his army into Cilicia and was soon poised to cross the Nur Mountains into Syria. But then the main Persian army, led by King Darius III himself, emerged behind the Macedonian army to the north. Darius was determined to trap and destroy Alexander's army, which he outnumbered by almost 2-1, so he blocked Alexander's only escape route by moving his army to the coastal plain near Essus, just 6 miles wide from mountains to sea. The narrow battlefield would force Alexander to fight, but it also prevented Darius from exploiting his huge numerical advantage. His army, by some estimates, was up to 100,000 strong and contained some of the finest soldiers in his vast empire, including 10,000 of his own household troops, known as the Immortals. His best cavalry were massed on his right, towards the sea, where the ground was better for horses. His best infantry, his Greek mercenary hoplites, formed the center. Persian infantry formed his left wing. Alexander deployed his own army for battle, once again entrusting his left wing nearest the sea to Parmenion, with the Greek cavalry and infantry. In the center, as always, was the Macedonian phalanx. Alexander positioned himself and his best troops on the right wing, toward the mountain slopes. His elite Agrion javelin throwers, his archers, and behind them, the Hypaspists and the companion cavalry. When Alexander saw the strength of the Persian cavalry facing Parmenion on the left, he moved across his Thessalian cavalry to reinforce him. Despite his overwhelming numbers, Darius held his position behind a small river, the Pinarus, and waited for Alexander to make the first move. He didn't have to wait long. Alexander rallied his men, calling out to them to fight bravely, picking out some by name. Then, at the head of his army's right wing, he charged. The speed and ferocity of the Macedonian advance were overwhelming, sending the Persian lines reeling. In the center, however, the Macedonian phalanx was in trouble. Their formation, disrupted in their eagerness to keep pace with Alexander's aggressive charge, began to falter under the pressure of Darius's Greek mercenaries. Now, in fierce fighting with Darius's Greek mercenaries, the phalanx was slowly being driven back. Seeing the danger, Alexander swiftly regrouped and led the companions in a headlong charge straight at the Persian center. The Greek mercenaries, threatened on their flank, were soon in disarray, and the Macedonian phalanx was able to resume its advance. The pivotal moment came when Alexander fought his way towards Darius. The sight of the Macedonian king, fearless and relentless, was too much for Darius. Opting for survival, he fled the battlefield in his royal chariot, a decision that would seal the fate of his army. Meanwhile, the Macedonian left wing, under Parmenion, was in a desperate fight against the best of the Persian cavalry. If the Persians could break through here, they could envelop Alexander's army and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. But Parmenion and his troops fought doggedly and continued to hold the Persians at bay. As the news that Darius had fled spread among his troops, they abandoned the fight and tried to save themselves. The battle turned into a massacre. Ptolemy, one of the Macedonian commanders, told Alexander there were so many Persian dead that his men had used them to fill a deep ravine so they could cross over it. The Battle of Issus was a stunning victory for Alexander, and amongst the spoils of victory were Darius's wife, mother, and 3 children, all taken alive and well treated by Alexander. With the Persian field army in retreat, Alexander now turned to subduing the western territories of the Persian Empire. By 332 BC, the coastal cities of Phoenicia had submitted to Alexander, marking the end of Persian naval power in the Mediterranean. However, the island city of Tyre presented a formidable challenge. Defenders of Tyre resisted with bravery and skill, even as Alexander began building a causeway to the island, complete with 2 giant siege towers. The Tyrians counterattacked with fire ships, but after a 7-month siege, their walls were breached and the city fell. The fall of Tyre was a harsh one, with most of its citizens killed or enslaved. Alexander's campaign then led him to Egypt, where he was greeted as a liberator from Persian rule. He continued to Pelusium on the Nile Delta, where the Persian governor of Egypt surrendered the entire province to Alexander, along with the royal treasury. In Memphis, the ancient priests crowned him pharaoh, recognizing him as the ruler of their land. At the mouth of the Nile, Alexander founded a new city, Alexandria, which would become a center of Hellenistic culture and learning. His journey to the Oracle of Siwa further solidified his divine status, as he was welcomed as the son of Amun, the king of the gods. Alexander returned east to Tyre, where in 331 BC he received news of trouble back home. Despite his successes in the east, Alexander faced challenges back in Greece. Many Greeks, particularly in Sparta, viewed Alexander as a tyrant. King Agis of Sparta, supported by Persia, launched a revolt against Macedonian rule. Antipater, Alexander's commander in Greece, already dealing with rebellion in Thrace, quickly marched south to confront this new threat. The ensuing battle near Megalopolis was a testament to the might of the Macedonian military. Even the legendary Spartans were now no match for Macedonian military power. The Spartan army was crushed and King Agis fell in battle. With his base in Greece secure once more, Alexander advanced towards the Persian heartlands, seeking a final showdown with Darius. He received a letter from the Persian king offering him a fortune in gold, his daughter in marriage, and half his empire in exchange for peace. But Alexander's stunning victories, all the oracles and acclamations, had now convinced him that his destiny was to rule the world. He rejected the Persian king's offer. He didn't want half the empire. He was coming to take it all.